Trauma is part of life. It need not be a source of shame. The inspiration for this book was simple. I experienced trauma during my childhood and recovered from it with EMDR therapy. So I wanted to speak to people who might also be trauma survivors to let them know that there's hope for healing in their lives too. I also wanted to give them a guide for how to get there. Most important, I wanted people to understand that trauma is a part of life. It need not carry stigma or be a source of shame. As I experienced the various phases of treatment, I developed a conceptual understanding of what trauma is and why it sometimes gets locked in our brains, but outside our day-to-day awareness. I came to recognize the symptoms and red flags associated with trauma, the survival strategies we developed to cope with pain, and much more. I also developed first-hand knowledge of what EMDR therapy is and how it can be used to help us heal. Each chapter of this book has been written to communicate various concepts as I came to understand them during my own recovery. I've had the honor of collaborating with Dr. Deborah Korn, a leading trauma expert, who describes the core concepts of trauma and EMDR therapy in a clear and non-clinical voice. I hope this book will inspire other trauma survivors to seek relief through therapy like I did, so they too can find a path to their authentic selves and live the lives they deserve. Our memories, even fragments of memories, are clues, like a trail of breadcrumbs. They might be incomplete or confusing at first, but if we have the courage to face the ones that scare us the most, they can lead to discoveries that will free us. Our memories are the caretakers of truth in our lives, and every memory deserves respect.
Debbie. On a weekly basis, it's not uncommon for me to reach for a book on my shelf with the intention of handing it to a client who is having a hard time with something. I love books and have a huge array of texts that were written for clients new to therapy and, more specifically, for trauma survivors. I offer books in the hope of providing some education, some inspiration, and some validation, and a new framework for understanding symptoms and struggles. More often than not, though, my clients look at me and then at the book in my hand and say, "Thanks, but no thanks." They often feel overwhelmed just looking at the cover, the size of the print, and the number of pages. Some even ask playfully, "Are there any pictures?" Because concentration in day-to-day life is already quite difficult for many of my clients, reading a book is not something they necessarily embrace as a pleasurable activity, especially a book about trauma. When Michael contacted me and shared his vision for this book, I jumped at the opportunity to join him on his survivor mission. I was delighted with his proposal. His enthusiasm was contagious and his personal story compelling. I was touched by his deep desire to educate others about the value of good trauma treatment. Michael explained that EMDR therapy, experienced within the security of his relationship with Jeffrey J. Magnavita, Ph.D., had offered him a new lease on life. As a result of his experience, he wanted to make sure that others who were suffering, particularly those who had endured abuse and neglect in childhood, knew about everything that EMDR therapy and good trauma treatment, more generally, can offer. From our very first meeting, I was moved by Michael's sincere desire to bring hope and information to others who might benefit from trauma-focused psychotherapy. I was excited to learn that he had spent most of his professional life in marketing and advertising. As a result, he had a treasure trove of innovative ideas related to the goal of getting needed trauma-focused information and guidance out to the public. I started to envision creating a book that my clients might actually read. In time, we started to play with the notion of producing a book that might also appeal to therapists, primary care doctors, employee assistance professionals, educators, and even lawyers and probation officers. We imagined these professionals sharing this book with the people in their care. Throughout Every Memory Deserves Respect, I have incorporated the words and stories of my own clients to bring certain concepts and emotional struggles to life. Michael and I hope that we have succeeded in creating a book that challenges you to be courageous and fierce about your recovery, gives you hope, and inspires you to embark or continue on a journey that will potentially change your life in ways that you perhaps can't even imagine right now.